So without further ado, let us start. Students claim that writing is very hard, and they also claim that writing is the hardest thing ever. Why is it hard? Of course, we can relate. Yes, writing is hard, but it doesn't mean that they can't do it. It means that we need to work harder in order to improve our writing. Now, writing is a complex skill because it demands a lot of skills from our students, a lot of things that they have to put into the writing, of finding which words or phrase to use. This is a skill that they have to know. They have to know which words to use, which words are appropriate to be used in a specific context. These are things that they are required to do. That's why writing is complex. What else? The skill of spelling. And of course, today, spelling is a very, 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 very challenging thing for our students, because where do they get to see spelling? When they read stuff online, and whenever they read things online, especially on social media, they are not spelled correctly. So they're not exposed enough to words spelled correctly. So let us continue with the skill of putting words together in order to form a coherent sentence or a coherent paragraph, as you suggested. So putting words together in order for them to make logic together is also a skill that they have to learn. And the skill of organizing the ideas, all their ideas in a coherent whole, starting with the topic sentence, supporting sentences, and of course the concluding sentence at the end, and how to connect all the paragraphs together, how to connect all the ideas together, how to connect all the words together to form a sentence. These are things that demand a lot of work, a lot of intensive work in behalf of us teachers in our classrooms, and of course things that we have to ask our students to do. And of course it's their responsibility to improve. It's our responsibility to help them improve. So it takes two to tango, as they say. So we work together, and it takes two hands to clap. So we're working together in order to improve our students' writing skills. Now let's start with talking about sentences. And I find something that is really challenging for students, and that they miss verbs in their sentences. As you all know, whenever we write, we need a verb. In order to help our students to form a sentence correctly, is to teach them that the verb is actually the heart of the sentence. It's the heart of the sentence. Why is it the heart of the sentence? Because as we human beings cannot live without our hearts, can we? If it stops, we can't live, we can't breathe, we can't exist. So we exist with the help of our heart, and of course we have a correct sentence. A correct sentence exists only if we have a verb in it. Okay, so this is something that I love stressing in my lessons, and I love to put it on the board with drawing the heart, and I ask them to write it, of course, on their notebooks, so they can go back to it and see whether the sentences are correct or not, whether they have a verb in the sentence. This is one of the tips of many tips that I would like to share with you in today's session. So I hope you're writing things down in order for you to remember them later on. What do I mean by scaffolding? Just like as the workers and the construction workers work on building a building, so they're working on a strong basis, and they work in an organized, well done manner. If we want our students to improve their writing, we of course have to work with them in order that they know how to form a proper sentence. They know how to use certain vocabulary words. They know how to connect two ideas together in a sentence. So we can move on to writing two sentences, and then to writing a paragraph, and then to writing an essay. So we need to scaffold the whole process of writing. Now, I would like to suggest some ideas in order to help us talking to my students about, and it really works, is by telling our students that we have to stretch our sentences. Stretching them, meaning making them longer, have more meat, more meaning. So the readers, because we're writing for a purpose, aren't we? Aren't we writing in order for other people to read? So we are the writers and they are the readers. We want to make our sentences clearer and more interesting for our readers. So I start by telling them that if we want to form a sentence, we need, of course, the who, which is the subject of the sentence. So we work on talking about the who, and then the what, the action. We need the verb here. Who, what, where, the place, and when, the time. And if we take this formula and ask our students to form sentences, stretching their sentences using this, we can help them form correct sentences from the beginning, where we have the who, the what, where, and when, and then later on move on to much more sophisticated sentences. So the who in this case is the giraffe, and then what? The giraffe is eating leaves. Where? At the zoo. When? Right now. Present progressive. Okay, so this is the sentence. Later on, when we can, of course, put it on the board if we have an English corner, so we can display it so they can see it, the who, the what, where, and when. Ask them to form their own sentences on their notebooks, asking them to check each other's sentences. Again, working on this topic of stretching, and I used the giraffe specifically because it has a long neck, so we can stretch. So how can we go beyond stretching the sentence? By making a wow sentence. How can we make our sentence a wow sentence? A wow, meaning it's wow for the readers. They can imagine, they can visualize the sentence. It comes to life. How can we do that? Yes, you guessed it, by adding adjectives. Now, where do we add the adjective? Yes, the adjectives comes before the noun. Let's take a look at the nouns. Can you tell me, you can open your mic, you can type in the chat, where are the nouns in the sentence? The giraffe is eating leaves at the zoo right now. The giraffe, leaves, the zoo. Excellent. So let's focus on the giraffe. What kind of an adjective can I use in order to describe the giraffe?
The tall giraffe.
The tall giraffe. Do you have any other suggestions?
Giraffe.
The
old
hungry.
The old giraffe. The hungry giraffe. Excellent. So what did I do right now? I brainstormed vocabulary words, the adjectives that they know before. So they have a chance to recycle the adjectives that they already know in order to form the sentence and to enrich it and to make it a wow sentence. Let's talk about the leaves. What can we say about the leaves?
Green
leaves.
Soft.
Tasty.
Soft. Tasty. Excellent. I love your suggestions. Very good. So this is how we can move on from stretching our sentence to make it a wow sentence. And I have a video on my YouTube channel explaining how to teach students how to make a wow sentence. So we do all this in order to stretch the sentence. Another idea that I would like to share with you today that helps us scaffold the idea of writing sentences. I'm again moving on from writing a sentence to writing a paragraph. Like I'm trying also to scaffold my talk and building on to forming a coherent paragraph. So let's talk about this idea, which is how many sentences can you form? You create cards with random words like this one. Words that they already know before, words that you worked together with them in previous units, previous themes that you've taught, previous years that you've taught. You put all the words together. You make sure that the words are, of course, nouns. You have verbs, you have adjectives, you have prepositions. So they can make really interesting sentences. You give them the cards. You can give them a whole card with the words. You can give them isolated words so they can put them together to form a sentence. You can have the words in cards, in flashcards with shapes according to the theme that you're teaching. You play around with the idea, whatever matches your students' needs, whatever, of course, time and energy that you are willing to put into creating the cards. But it's really easy to do. You can also write the words on the board, depending on your, of course, time and your students' needs. So you have the words and you ask them, okay, now I am going to give you 3 minutes to write as many sentences as you can using the words in front of you. So they can work individually, they can work in pairs, they can work in a group. Together, they have to form correct sentences. And then you can give them time to share their sentences so you can check together whether they formed correct sentences or not. If you want to scaffold it to make it easier for students, like for weaker students, for example, you can have the words that needs to be in the beginning capitalized. So it will be easier for them to know, hey, this word needs to go and needs to go in the beginning of the sentence. It needs to be, it's in the capital letter, so it's in the beginning of the sentence, unless it's a name, of course, as you teach them. And you can also have cards with full stops, like the period at the end, so they can also put that at the end. Whatever suits your students' needs. It's fun, it's engaging. They write sentences in a meaningful, fun, and engaging way. And that's the how many sentences can you write challenge. Do you have any questions about this?
Yes.
Yeah,
Like
go ahead.
here, for example, if I take the word monkey, can I use only monkey, or I need to take to form the sentence and use the word only from the table?
Yes, only from the table. Thank you for asking, because what's the challenge? The challenge is to be restricted to the words that you have in front of you and to use them in a sentence. That makes the challenging part and the fun part in the game. Okay, I'm moving on. I wanted to ask you to form your own sentences using the words, but I wanted to add more ideas as we go along. So let us continue. Match the halves. This is also fun. You put half of sentences on the board, and they have to put the sentences together and to match them together. Who would like to match sentences together now? Later, you can move on to having the sentence of the children are having. What are they having? What can we have? We can have fun. What else can we have? We can have lunch. Thank you. Okay, you can have them match the sentences. You can have the sentences on the board. They can copy and match the sentences together. You can have it on different cards, so they can match the two blocks to match them together. You play around with the idea, and you can give them only one half, so they can continue what comes after, what comes before. And here you have an excellent activity where you of course, encourage them to come up with their own sentences and to be creative and to learn how words work together. Continue with the disappearing words game. What do you do here? You write a sentence on the board. You don't have to prepare for it. You simply come to the classroom and you write the sentence on the board, and then you slowly erase words from the board, and you ask students to repeat the sentence, and then you ask them what's the missing word, and they repeat after you with the missing words, and until all the words are erased, and they have to retrieve the sentence from their memory. Like, I live in a house near the mountains, and then I erase the word house. Who would like to repeat the sentence now? Erase the words, and they then can repeat after you and fill in the missing words. And then you can also erase the word live. So I live in a house near the mountains. And you can ask them to replace the word house with a different word. Like, I live in a hut near the mountain. I live in a cottage near the mountain. I live in a villa near the mountains. So they can play around with alternative words here, and they can, of course, it's not just for passing time. It's not just for fun, although it is fun. It also helps them get the words connected together, know the sequence of words when they form the sentence. So they would later on, when they have to write their own sentences with I have, so they know that after you have. So I have, and then you write the thing that you possess, the thing that you have. I have 2 sisters, I have a dog, I have a cat, I have a computer, and they know how to form the sentence correctly. It's fun, it's engaging, the words are disappearing, it doesn't demand a lot of preparation in your behalf. And I found this technique very effective. Ready to move on to the next idea? I love using I am poems. If you're not familiar with the idea of I am poems, I have a video on that topic on my YouTube channel. But in order to make a long story short, you ask your students to form sentences that represent their personalities using patterns that they have to fill in. Like, this is a simplified version of it. Like, I am, maybe they can write their own names. Like, I am Rania. 3 adjectives that describe me. I am hopeful, creative, and loyal. Okay, so 3 adjectives that they can use to describe themselves. It can be I am thin, I am tall, and I am whatever, I'm active. So any 3 adjectives that they can use to describe themselves. I love coffee. I don't like liars. I'm afraid of snakes, for example. I hope for a better future. They can form their own sentences. Why do I love this activity, especially in the beginning of the school year? First, it helps you learn more about your students. Second, it helps you get to know your students' level in English. And third, it's meaningful and it's personal. And whenever you give us your students a task, a writing task especially, and of course any language production task, whether it's speaking or writing, in this case we're talking about writing. So whenever you give them a task that is personal, it's about them, it's much more engaging for them because they love talking about themselves, just like we all human beings love. We all love to talk about ourselves. And whenever something is personal, it's about me, I am more likely to be engaged in the task. So that's one of suggestions that I would like to make in order to scaffold the whole topic of writing. And of course, here you can give them different chunks that they can work with in order to form their sentences. And it gives them something to hold on to as they write. What's behind another fun activity where you have the text in front of you, in front of the students, a short text. You can display it on an overhead projector in front of the students. You can write it on the board, whatever you want, but make sure that they can see the words, and you use any shape that you want. If you're using a PowerPoint presentation, you can use any shape that you want, any image that you want, any illustration that you want to hide specific words in the text. Why are you doing that? You ask your students, okay, I need you to guess which words are hidden. Okay, let's say, is Tom Foster. So it's what can be the missing word? My name. Excellent. I like eating for lunch. Like eating hamburgers for lunch. Any other suggestions?
Fish and chips, whatever they can try.
Yes. So of course, here they review the words that have to do with of course, with food. And yes, after eating, of course, we have food. I always soccer. What can you do with soccer?
Play.
I always play soccer, but
I can also
play.
So here we need a verb. Thank you. Excellent. I like to
Drink
fresh juice, but I don't like soda. Okay. They can guess the missing words, and here you can, of course, it helps them review the vocabulary words that they know. It helps them work how words work together, how words work together to form a correct sentence. And they here can recognize that after to, we have a verb. After can, we have a verb. Okay, topic of parts of speech and where they come in a sentence. And then you can move on to, you're actually using the same activity to ask them to write about themselves. So my name is, and then they write their own name. I like eating. What do they like to eat? They write their own favorite types of food. An activity that they have to guess in, this element of surprise and fun, to them actually understanding the parts of speech and how they work together in a sentence. And then you take it to the next level. You add another layer to it in order to ask them to write and form their own text, to come up with their own text. And to the next activity. Yes, banana dictation. I love this dictation. Dictations are usually boring, where you stand in front of the classroom, you dictate certain words, and they have to write the words that you dictate. Okay, okay. It can be boring. Yes, it is effective. Yes. Some people claim that it's a waste of time. I disagree. I think dictations are very important. It's very important for us to teach our students how to spell words correctly. And in the book, they are asked to spell the words correctly. So when do we have the opportunity to do this? We as teachers have to do it together with them, have to work on dictations because it forces them to study, and they do need to be forced to study because this is their only chance to practice correct spelling, spell words correctly. Why not do a banana dictation? What is a banana dictation? You come up with a text and then you have words where you say banana instead of specific words. And whenever you dictate the sentence, you say, for example, once upon a time, there was a beautiful country called Banana. It was far away.
France, for example.
France, okay. Or you cannot come up with a country that doesn't exist. Like country. And what else? This is how you check that they wrote the name of the country with a capital letter, because a name starts with a capital letter. Okay, this is an opportunity for you to check whether they comprehend and they understand this. It was far away next to the banana.
Sea.
Next to the sea, next to the river, next to the river, it's fun, it's engaging, it's creative, and it don't want to use the word banana, you can play around with it and ask them, okay, which word do you want me to use today? Milkshake? Okay, let's have a milkshake dictation. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful country called Milkshake. It was far away next to the milkshake. Many milkshake lived there, okay? So you can play around with the concept. It's fun, it's engaging, and really students love that. They love it. So I highly recommend using it. Moving on to the next activity. Yay, writing speech bubbles. Writing speech bubbles, it can be fun. Whatever I want to introduce today is actually a digital platform, like it's a website, but you can do it offline as well. You can ask them to draw their own illustration. You can take out images from a magazine where you add a speech bubble and you ask them to write their own sentences. If you want to make something that you can reuse again, different years, so you can have that in your folder, I highly recommend that you laminate them. You laminate the picture with a speech bubble. So you can, of course, use it again and again and again with other students by asking them to write on the laminated card with a marker. So I will quickly introduce this website, which I found. It's not a new website, but it's really cool. It's called phraseit.net. You can upload your own image, or you can use whatever they have available from the stock photo. Yep, that's the image. I use the bubble. Let's choose, I don't know, this one, for example. Yeah, so what can the monkey say here? So they can form their own sentences and they can save their work. This is something that you can give as homework. It's fun, it's creative. And of course, you can change the photo here. Like you have different photos that you can choose from. And you can, again, as I said before, upload your own image. Again, we have Trump. Okay, you got the idea.
They need to have their own account?
No, that's why I love it. I love websites that don't require any account, and this is for free, available for everyone. You create your work, you save it, and that's it. You don't have to have an account. A dialogue is really fun. Again, there are a lot of platforms available for you to create, for them to create comic books that are really beautifully illustrated, where they can come up with their own dialogue. You can cut two people, like a picture of two people talking together from a magazine, and you can simply draw the bubble so they can fill it. They can draw their own images and then have the speech bubble, work around with it, and it's fun. It makes writing fun for students, especially beginners, because this gives them an opportunity to write as isolated sentences and not a whole paragraph, which can be overwhelming for some students. Post-it notes. I love post-it notes. This is a post-it note, as you can see here. Post-it notes are like small notes that have part of it that has a glue, so you can stick it on things. I love post-it notes, and I love using them in classrooms. And I would like to suggest 2 ideas here where you can use post-it notes. They are very cheap. but they do have a lot of value in terms of you using them in your classroom. One of the ways is to bring posters. I'm sure you all have textbooks, and some textbooks, especially for elementary school teachers, have posters along with them to go along with them. So you can bring the posters that are usually laminated, put it in at the center of a group and ask them to write sentences on the post-its, and to, of course, stick them and glue them next to the image and the poster. And I found it very effective. You can use it with pictures, you can use it with posters, you can print out your own poster, laminate it, so you can use it with other students as well. And here's another suggestion where you can use post-it notes, where you can write a question, a prompt on the board, ask your students to form sentences, isolated sentences. For weaker students, they can simply write a word. You invite them to put it on the board. Again, movement is fun. They love moving around the classroom, so they have to get up, put on their own sentences, and this makes them feel that they have contributed to the lesson. You can invite them to come to the board and read each other's sentences. Are you grateful for? This is something that we really should encourage our students to think about, especially nowadays, for our mental health. And this is something that we should encourage our students to think about, really simple things that we are grateful for. Again, if we're talking about teenagers specifically, they tend to think whatever goes wrong with their lives, whatever problems they face, that this is the end of the world. And whenever you ask them to think about the small things that we should appreciate in life, it really adds value. And you're at students by practicing gratefulness and being grateful for the things that we have. Again, that has nothing to do with the idea. This is one of the ways that you can take it to. You can display a picture and ask them to come to the board, put sticky notes with sentences about the picture. You can ask them to write about the things that excite them. You can ask them to write about their hobbies, anything that you can think of that might be meaningful and personal. Asking them to also come to the board. You don't have to have sticky notes. You ask them to come to the board. They write their sentences on their notebooks, and you invite them to the board. They write their sentences. They look at each other's sentences. They can kindly correct each other's sentences. Again, it's very beneficial for the whole process of scaffolding writing. Yes, again, another way to make writing fun is by creating writing and then writing their sentences in a form that is visual, that is appealing. In this case, we have waves, and this is the story of Little Red Riding Hood, and they can have it in a spiral form. This is in a form of an egg. How can you do that? They can do it physically by writing. Of course, this is after they edited their writing. Yes, after they checked their writing that it's correct. You can ask them to form the sentences in the shape that represents the theme of the writing, okay? Or they can create it using this website that is called FestiSite. FestiSite. And what can you do here? You can actually type in your sentence, like, here you go. This is in the shape of a heart. You can save the image. You can of course download it as an image, as a printable document, as a PDF, and then later you can print it out and display it in the classroom. It can be in a form of a heart in this website, and waves. Preview, waves. You can play around with the size of the font, with the size of the text that you want to download, and then click preview to see the changes in a form of a word cloud. Preview. Adds a fun element into teaching writing, so they can visualize their ideas written together. You can again have them write it on their notebooks. You can on a piece of paper, on a poster, display it in class. They can use this website, and so they can share it with others. And of course, if you have a newspaper website, you can have it there, add it there, so other people can use it. And you of course can use it as a teacher yourself, create your own text and maybe have an activity, a fun activity using the text that you wrote, where they have to locate the verbs, they have to locate the nouns, whatever, they have to locate the adjectives, and other, like the sky is not the limit in terms of how creative you can be in using this tool. Use this tool as much as you can, however you can. Being fluent. I'm sure you've all experienced it as teachers, the fact that whenever you give your students a writing task and they start writing, they get frustrated. Why? Because maybe they can't find the correct word to use. Maybe they translate, as you suggested before, from their L1. And this really interrupts the process of flowing. You don't want them to be worried about accuracy, although you need them to be worried about accuracy. But in the beginning, you need them to flow. You need them to focus on fluency, because they can start writing and work on the writing and edit, because it's not that you write it and that's it. This is the way you have to submit it. No, we have to encourage them. Like you have to encourage them to take a look at their writing, to check whether they have the capitalized letters in the beginning, whether they have full stops, whether they have a verb, whether the words come together, whether they have correct connectors, connecting words together. You have to encourage them to edit their work. This is something that they should do, but in the beginning, in order to get them to be better writers, they have to focus on fluency, because otherwise they will be more concerned with the accuracy part, and the end products are not the products that you expect them to give to you. And you will get frustrated learners that will find writing difficult. So how can we work on making them fluent? We can work on that by creating a context where they have a purpose for writing. If they're writing a letter, there's a purpose for writing a letter. Write a letter to your favorite artist. Write a letter for your favorite soccer player, to someone that you admire. Like, you have to set a purpose for writing a letter. You have to set a purpose for writing your opinion. You have to convince your teacher not to give you homework. This is a purpose. Think of ways that you can set a context where there's a purpose for the writing, because whenever, again, I said that before, whenever the task is meaningful, it has a purpose, it serves a purpose, they are more likely to be engaged. And when you're engaged in something, you have this phase which we all strive to be in, which is the flow phase, where you are in a flow. You don't notice how time passes by, because you're focused on the task that you have to accomplish, and you're actually enjoying yourself. And this is something that we want our students to reach. This is the end goal. Start with a visual prompt, a picture that can encourage them to write, a personal story that you want to share and you want them to react to, a personal story that you want them to relate and to talk about, a similar personal story that they can write about, whatever. Collect the ideas from them, brainstorm. Again, it's very important for them to be able to access the vocabulary words that they need to use in their writing, because if you don't have the words to express your opinion, to write your letter, to write your sentences, if you lack vocabulary words, how can you write when you don't have words? How can you write? Is it enough to have a grammar? Is it enough to know how to form the present simple, the present progressive, or whatever grammar you're teaching them? No, they need words. Help them, give them the words. How can you give them the words? I'm here to tell you. Use word walls, use posters or cheat sheets. I will explain. Group the words together in a form of a word wall, where you have a poster in front of them in the classroom, in the English corner, so they can go back to with the verbs that they can go back to and write. You can have the vocabulary words displayed with the meaning. You can have the vocabulary words displayed with an illustration of the verb, depending on the level of your students and depending on their needs. Another way to have the vocabulary words accessible is by having them displayed on the board. Another way to have it accessible to them is by having it glued to their writing notebooks so they can go back to it whenever they need, whether it's at home or at school. They're not at home, they're not at school, so they can copy the words from the board and use it. They're not at school, so they can use the English corner. They have it on the writing notebook. They can go back to it whenever they want and check. You can have connectors. You can have specific words that have to do with the theme of family, specific words that have to do with the theme of holidays, specific words with the theme of bullying, any theme that you want them to write about, any topic that you want to write about, have the words accessible so it will be easier for them to write. Help them, they need you. And this is how you can do it. I talked about the fact that they should have something accessible on their writing notebook. And this is something, it goes beyond only vocabulary words. It can be sentence chunks, depending on the level of your students. This is something that I use with my students, where in the beginning of the school year, where I gave them like a structure of how I want them to write about themselves, so they can go back to it and use it as a scaffolding mechanism to form their own paragraph, form their own sentences. This is something that they glue on their notebooks so they can go back to. Again, it stays with them, it's available, accessible, and it gives them a sense of relief when I know that, okay, I have something to hold on to, especially weaker students. I have something to hold on to. I have it in my writing notebook. I simply go back to it, and it will help me form my sentence correctly. It will help me in the process of writing, help them. Another way to help them and to make the process of flowing and editing easier by writing. This is also, these are two examples from what I do in class, and I do it in different forms. So it will be visual. I'm visual myself, and I know that my students are visual. So I always try to put it, to display it in class. What do I need to see? What do I need to see as a teacher to make sure that you're writing correctly? How can you check your writing and make sure that you wrote well? What do you need? You finished writing? Okay, please check your writing and check the following: capitalization. Okay, now I have to go back to my writing. I have to check whether the words are capitalized at the beginning of the sentence, whether I have a name and I have to capitalize it. Punctuation, do I have a comma? Do I have a full stop at the end of the sentence? Again, checking myself. Spelling, do I have all the words spelled correctly? How can I check? Okay, I know that my teacher gave me those words and they are available on my writing notebook, so I can go back to the words. Okay, I know that the words are in front of me in the English corner, so I can check whether I spelled it correctly. And when I go back to it again and again, and I use the word, for example, like, again and again and again and again and again, I remember how to spell the word like correctly. Something, again, to hold on to. Grammar, did I use the past simple? I have to check. I was asked to write about my last summer vacation, and I need to use the past simple. Now I need to make sure that all the sentences that I have verbs, because again, the verb is the heart of the sentence. And again, I have to check whether the verbs that I have are actually in the past. I want to make sure. Okay, I'll underline the verbs that I have. I go back to them. If I'm not sure whether this verb is regular or irregular, I can go back to the list at the end of the book and check. I can go back to my grammar notebook and check. Like things to hold on to whenever they write. Make sure that you display that, whether on the board, whether it's on their writing notebook, whether it's on the classroom, the English corner. Have it accessible. Help them. It's a very challenging task. We're asking them to do a lot. We're asking them to do a lot. Writing is not easy. Help them. Help them to make it easier for them. Now, let's talk about why writing. Okay, now, as a writer, I have, like, as a learner, as a writer, I have to write to my readers. I want to form the ideas very well. I want my ideas to be well structured. I have to brainstorm the ideas and sequence them together. If I'm writing a story, I need this to be first, this to be next. If I'm writing about my experience, I have to write about this experience first, this is next, this is the second, this is the second thing, this is the last thing that I want to appear. Ask them to write down their ideas, number the ideas, not isolated words, the ideas, so they can go back and then sequence them. First, this happened. Next, this happened. After that, this happened. Finally, that happened. Sequencing the ideas together, this really helps them while they're writing. So it will be easier for them to accomplish the end goal, and it will be easier for you to check as a teacher. While they're writing, ask them to revise, add connectors, join ideas together by using, if they're in elementary school, by using and, using but, using because. More advanced learners will use moreover, however, and other connectors, okay? And have it accessible again. Edit. Edit needs to be in terms of content, the ideas, and am I really answering whatever the teacher is asking me? Does it actually answer the content that the teacher wants me to write about? This is just an example. If it doesn't, then you didn't complete the task correctly, because the content has to serve the task that you were required to do. Again, getting back to the content and language. Language, is it correct? Do I have the correct words used and the correct, like the placement of the words? Do I have the sequence of parts of speech correctly? Do I have the ideas glued together? This is something that we need to teach our students to do, not to simply write and that's it, and hand it to my teacher. And that's it. How can we help them do it? By having editing time. Okay, this is the editing time. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. How long do you need to edit your work? Ask them. Put a timer. Set a timer, whether it's on your phone, on an overhead projector, whether you have a sandblast that you want to use, whatever. Use timer and force them to edit, because they want to get this over with. I'm done. I wrote. Okay, that's it. I hand it to my teacher. They don't check. They don't edit. Force them to edit and explain how it's very beneficial for them to edit, because the end result will be way better than what they've submitted. If you want to make it clearer, collect their work. You can photocopy it and then give them back their notebooks. If you're willing to put time and energy into doing that, it depends on you. It depends on how many students you have. It depends on, you can do it with specific students, and then give them their notebooks the next day and ask them to edit. And after that, show them whatever they handed you, like the product that they handed you in the beginning, and ask them to compare and to see the quality of their writing when they had to edit, when they had to go over specific words. This will reinforce the process of writing. This will help them, will assist them to become better writers. Post-writing is, of course, publishing. I would like to talk about publishing and how important publishing is. If you are working on a specific writing task for yourself, write it and share it with others. Notice the quality of your work as a teacher. Okay, work, whether you wrote it to yourself or with to share it with other people, like to share it with other teachers, you will notice that the time and effort that you put into perfecting your work, and there's no such thing as perfect, of course, making it the best work that you can make, you are more likely to invest time and energy to make it perfect when you have to publish it for other people to see, because it will benefit other people. I will have more readers. Imagine if you would do that with your students. If you publish their work, whether you publish it and you share it on the classroom wall, whether you share it in the school hallways, whether you share their work with parents, you have a parents' night, a school website, school Facebook page. When they know that their work is going to be published, they're going to really put time and energy and invest into making it as perfect as they can. And they will produce a better, I'm sure, a better product. Okay, I hope that it wasn't too much and I didn't overwhelm you. And I hope the ideas that I shared with you today are beneficial and you'll find them useful. And I hope and pray to God that you will actually share them with others and you implement them into your teaching practice.